Hey everyone, welcome to the FF Podcast Experience, where faith and leadership come together to help you build a life and legacy that lasts. Whether you're leading a business, a team, or a family, this podcast is here to give you the tools, stories, and biblical wisdom to stand firm, lead with purpose, and grow in faith.
Yeah, we're so glad you're here with us today. I'm Shane.
And I'm Josh. Each week we're going to dive into the heart of leadership, exploring timeless principles, tackling real challenges, and hearing from leaders who are living out their faith in powerful ways.
Absolutely. We'll get ready for some practical insights, some authentic conversations, and inspiration to help you lead like never before, all built on a firm foundation of faith.
And do me a favor, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Spotify so you'll never miss an episode. Hey, thanks for joining us on the FF Podcast. We are so grateful that you're here listening. I'm Josh, and we're going to talk a little bit today about, we're going to talk a lot today about integrity. So we're going to start off by talking a little bit about who we are and what our experience is. So again, I'm Josh. I've got a little over a decade of ministry experience. I've led small churches. I've been in large churches. I've been in the corporate world. Right now, I'm in kind of a mix of both. So I'm leading in a corporate organization and still working as a pastor in a church here in New Mexico. Shane and I are just grateful that you're here listening to us. And I am grateful that I'm able to do this with Shane, my partner in crime here today. So Shane, I'm going to hand it over to you. Tell them a little bit about yourself.
Sure, yeah. So I have worked in ministry about the last decade or so as well. I've served on some executive teams over that time as well at some of the largest churches in the U.S., as well as some of the smaller churches as well. And so I've been able to kind of see a caveat of both, as well as I've had the privilege to do some consulting with churches on guest experience and leadership development. I recently finished up my MBA, and so just passionate about continuing to help this next generation, as well as the Big C Church in both leadership development and just growth as well. And so loving the opportunity to help reach people and bring them into a relationship with Christ.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, we're going to get right into it. So we are going to be talking about integrity-based leadership or integrity in leadership. So the National Institute of Health, in a study, found that integrity is one of the most crucial aspects of leadership for establishing trust and credibility. And that's what we're going to discuss with our guest, Andrew Poe. We're going to discuss just how trust and credibility are formed when you have a good foundation of integrity, leadership integrity. So let's go ahead and bring in Andrew. All right, good stuff. So now we are on to our guest, and we are going to bring in Andrew Poe. So let me bring him into the studio quickly here.
What's up, fellas?
Hey, Andrew, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Excellent, doing very well. Good to see you. It's been a little while since I've gotten to see you. So glad you're here with us and just kind of plugging in and giving us a little bit of who you are as well. So if you could take just a few moments or so and tell us a little bit about your background and why you're here with us today.
Well, thanks, guys. It is good to see you again. I'm Andrew. I've been pastor for about almost I'm kind of ashamed to admit it, but I've been a pastor now, I think, for almost 30 years. I know, my boyish charm.
Wow.
This lovely face doesn't look it, but I'm an old man.
Andrew, you don't look like you're any older than like 32. So Andrew started ministry when he was 2 years old.
Time. You can just keep me coming, bro. I'll pay you later. But no, I've been in ministry now for 30 years and lifetime learner as well. So, was a student at Biola University, graduated, came up to the Bay Area to be a youth pastor, and that's where I met my wife. And then after that, went back to seminary down at Talbot and then moved to New Mexico for 13 really good years. That's where I met both you, Josh, and Shane, and had a great time working at a church called Sagebrush and got to see God do far more than we could ever ask, dream, or even imagine as he just showed up. And the church grew like wildfire. I mean, it went from when I first got there, it was about 3,000 people. When I had ended, it went up to 14,000. And so got a front row seat to see God do something great and got to see strong leadership. I mean, man, got to see the Lord use a few people who are really talented and really gifted to accomplish great things. And so now currently I'm back out in sunny California. It's like 70 degrees outside today. And
Nice.
it is so nice right now, but moved to help a friend who was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And so came on to the team to work with him while he was going through treatment. And now he is cancer free and God has worked. And so good things have happened. But now I have kind of the role of helping in a lot of different areas at the church, preaching and helping out with just kind of the organization, business administration, and a bunch of things I never thought that I'd do in ministry, but it's been a lot of fun. Kids are thriving too, having a great time. So good to be with you guys today, though.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. That's amazing. It's so good to see just how God has continued to use you in the different ministries, as well as just impact the people around you as well. And so we're just so grateful to have you with us.
Yeah. Good to see you too,
Absolutely.
Shane. Good to catch up.
Absolutely. Well, Andrew, my first burning question really is it Dr. Poe now, or is it...
Dude, Dr. Poe is taking a while. So yes, I started when about 2 years ago in my PhD work through Liberty, and I'm still working on it. But I have a daughter who's graduating from high school, so either I could be tucked away in a book somewhere, or I could, spend quality time for the last, I've counted it, and I think I have about 150 days before she leaves to college. So as a dad, I'm trying to make the most of my time with my daughter, so I could be buried in, I'm done with all the classwork for my dissertation. I just have to write it, so yeah.
Okay. Well, that is the toughest part. So, but I do commend you on your
thanks.
Your daughter's more important than that.
Yes, very much so. And I honestly don't have any more room on my wall for another degree. So only 2 fit up here, Josh. So I gotta make sure that I got some room for it for the next.
You need a bigger wall,
dude. Maybe so. We'll see.
All right. Well, thank you, Andrew, for joining us today. So, as you know, the topic that we're discussing today is integrity. And when Shane and I were talking about this, we were like, man, there's no better guest to bring on than Andrew, because working with many different leaders in many different settings, Shane and I both agreed Andrew was a man of integrity, and we both believe that you emulate that in the workplace, and you expected it out of those who worked with you as well. So we thought, man, let's bring Andrew in and have him talk a little bit about integrity and leadership and what that looks like. So thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah.
Question number 1, Andrew. As a leader, how do you address someone on your team who you feel is not living out integrity-based leadership?
Oh, man. It's you guys started off with a good one, first of all. Man, if you want to talk about a firm foundation, if you don't get integrity right, you're gonna lose. So, and every time we had problems with a person of integrity, whether it be in business or whether it be in church ministry, which is a lot of my context, it always was bad, because it traipses down to something that's just much deeper than the surface. And integrity is basically who you are when no one else is looking, and so it hits at the core level of just, what makes you you. And so it's informed by 3 different things. Your beliefs is where it starts. So what you believe has to be important, and that informs everything else. So what I believe about life, what I believe about the world around me. If a person is the center of the universe, and that's what they believe, and that's the core thing, that's their whole paradigm is it's all about me or the money that I can make for my company, things are going to go off. So it starts with beliefs, and then your beliefs informs your values. So these are the things that I value in life. And so from my beliefs, this is how I've kind of hierarchy put those beliefs in order from my values of how I'm going to operate with others. And that then informs your character. And so the character is the way that we have conduct. And, the things that we, the way in which we operate. And I've loved the book by John Maxwell, Developing the Leader Within You, because it talks a lot about this, where, man, if you can figure out integrity, it's the bedrock, the very foundation of everything else. And unfortunately, with young leaders, a lot of times they don't get this. They want to move right to the conduct, and they want to run right to character, but they don't get that foundation of their beliefs and their values in order. And so when it comes to that, you start to see cracks emerge. Right now, I have the illustrious job at church of fixing the parking lot, which we're in an old historic church. It's like 80 years old. And so when I got here, the first thing that we noticed is the parking lot never got resurfaced once. And so there's potholes everywhere. It's so bad. And with that, I've learned a lot now about what it takes to build a parking lot. And you have to actually go down into the sub base. They'll rip it down. And if you don't fix what's underneath the asphalt, you're always going to have a terrible parking lot. And as I've learned this, I've learned a lot about leadership as well. If you don't dig down deep and you don't settle on those core principles of your beliefs and your values and your character, you're always going to have cracks. And so with somebody who's kind of new and beginning in ministry or in a work context, a lot of times they hadn't done that hard work. And so they're all about, the showiness, or it's about me. And so you start to see those cracks begin to appear. And so you see people who drag their feet. They don't come into work excited about what they're doing. And that's an integrity issue, because, man, if you valued what you do and you value where you're going, then you're not going to drag your feet. You're going to be 100% on board. And if you believe that God has put you on this earth to accomplish great things for him, then, your integrity will ground you in and say, hey, my boss may not be the best boss in the world, and, he's got some issues, but, man, I understand that I'm not doing this for my boss. I'm doing this for the Lord. And so that integrity kind of carries you through. So when you have a person who lacks that integrity, sometimes it's just sitting down with them and having an honest heart-to-heart conversation where it's like, hey, dude, and sorry, we say dude a lot in California. So I apologize in advance, everybody, but it's constant. But anyway, though, it's okay. You got to sit down and you got to have an honest conversation where, hey, this isn't quite matching up. And sometimes it's not the words people speak, it's sometimes their posture. If they come in late, or they're not giving 110%, or, there's a disconnect, or they become a toxic employee, in the organization, that you've got to have those heart-to-heart conversations, and you've got to deal with the integrity issue. Always harder. Always better to establish on the front end, hire well, and you're not going to run into this problem. If you do the job once and you make sure that you've got good people around you, then, oh man, all your troubles tend to go away sometimes. It's when I've gotten busy and I've tried to hire fast and we didn't do that hard work at digging down deep. Always got me in trouble.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and you mentioned just being able to have that conversation with someone as well. And I think a level of foundation in that is also being able to build the trust, with the people on your team, that, hey, I can trust you enough to be able to speak life into me, and to be able to, hey, if you're not living it out, it's hard for us to have that conversation with that person of going, hey, I don't feel like you're living an integrity-based life. Well, neither are you. Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. And so there is that side of, more is caught than taught. Yeah. In not only in the parenting side, but very much so in the leadership side as well. And so, there's a quote by Coach K, who coached Duke for 42 years, that I just want to read. So it says, in leadership, there are no words more important than trust. In any organization, trust must be developed among every member of the team if success is going to be achieved. Oh, and Shane, so maybe speak about that, if you can, for a moment.
Yeah, Shane, you hit on a great point of the idea of, trust is the bedrock of that firm foundation that you want to have. And I love Patrick Lencioni. Favorite 5 dysfunctions of a team changed my whole life. And absolutely, I love it. And the bedrock that he always starts out with is trust. Yep. And if you don't have trust, the whole pyramid just falls apart. and, Coach K as well, from Duke, like you just said, man, amazing coach. And a good coach will always do that. If the team does not trust one another and the team is sitting around and angry at one another all the time, and there's not a level of we can have an honest conversation and really care about each other, then you're going to see those cracks in that foundation just come right up to the surface. And a good leader just has to address it right away.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Patrick Lencioni is one of my favorite leadership authors as well. So couldn't agree more. I actually had that listed up there of going, I should bring up the foundation, and you talked right about it for the 5 dysfunctions of the team. Great.
I got you, Shane. I got your back, bro.
And Andrew, I love the simple analogy of the parking lot as well, because sometimes we can get overly complex when it comes to leadership. And your simple analogy of the parking lot, it looks fairly simple, right? You look at it and it doesn't look complex, but there is something underneath that holds up that entire structure. And you pointing 100%. That out is just, I think that's awesome. I think that's great.
Yeah, cool. I never thought that I would learn so much about parking lot in my whole life, Josh, and learn about sub base, and they call it AC on the top and BC in the middle, and then there's underneath that is the sub base. And to redo our parking lot is going to cost a lot of money. But we can go cheap. Like, we can just go outside and slurry seal the thing, and we can go in, slurry seal it, make it look nice, or we could dump a bunch of cans of paint on it, and we could just cover it up. And so many businesses do this, don't they? Or churches in general. Like, they'll quickly fix things, and they'll try to make it look good on the outside. But when you start digging down, it starts falling apart. Think about Enron, right? As a business story, in the early 2000s, they were an accounting mess. And they lied to everybody. They weren't honest. They weren't forthright. And man, they went down. And what went down was Arthur Andersen and so many others. And then here in the Bay Area, we have Sarah Holmes' company. Have you heard this story? She's the one of Theranos, I believe it is. Yep. Theranos. That's what it is. And in 2018, she starts this medical company that says, with a prick of blood, I can diagnose everything. Problem was, it was a fallacy. It was a lie. And she raised tons and tons of money, and now she sits in jail, FTX, cryptocurrency. Tons of money in it. And then after a while, you realize it's a sham and it all goes under. And all those are examples in the business world of just an absolute lack of integrity and how it brought everything down. Now, with that goes companies, paychecks, other people, and livelihoods of many. In the church context, man, we've seen this a lot, over the years, where it's like, man, it was all built around one person's personality, and then that person has a moral failure, and all of a sudden that integrity goes out, and that foundation's not there, and then everything goes.
So true. It's so interesting as well, that, again, you talked about that foundation for, the 5 dysfunctions of trust as well. One of the things actually I was hearing him talk about the other day as well is mining for problems. And so why I bring that up that I thought was interesting is that he was kind of talking through sometimes in our meetings when we have people around us, there's so much this idea of going, hey, is everybody on the same page? Yeah, we're good. But the reality is when you see someone who's no, as a leader, it's your job to mine for that. I don't feel like you're fully on board. Tell me what's going on. What are your hesitations? Because at the end of the day, the more we do that, the more we continue to build that trust, but as well as the more we're able to be able to get more consensus and more agreement. But more importantly than that is we're able to get true consensus. And it's not just you're the boss, and so we'll just do whatever you want. And I think that when we have those cultures, that's where the integrity-based side continues to get eroded because we're not willing to mine for it, and we're not willing to go, hey, you know what? When I'm in this seat, I'm giving you guys my full opinion. I'm giving you, I'm giving you feedback.
Yes.
And I want you to do the same thing for me because that's how we build trust. But that's also how that we have that level of integrity of I'm not blowing smoke for you. You're not blowing smoke for me. We are absolutely in line with I want what's best for you and you want what's best for me. and we continue to grow as leaders when we do that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And then just from leading teams over my I didn't really fear the meeting, but I feared the meeting after the meeting, where everybody would go and work through how they really felt, and they were too scared to bring it up at the meeting. So they'd go into somebody else's office, and they had this little clan that was like here or there, and then they'd get really honest, but they couldn't bring it up. And so you've got to, as a team leader, as well as a leader and a boss or somewhere else, you've got to have those honest conversations, and you got to provide safe ground where people can actually disagree. So often in meetings, you bring it up where it's like everybody just has to agree, but that actual exercise of mining for conflict really brings out where we really at on this, and is this safe enough to really talk about?
Yeah. Well, I do think that does lead us into our second question. What are some daily or weekly practices that you've put in your own life to help maintain that integrity-based leadership?
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, I'm a follower of Jesus, and so that informs everything that I do. And so once your firm foundation is kind of on that, then everything else falls in line. I love Matthew 7, which talks about building your house on the bedrock, and that's the end of the Sermon on the Mount, when Jesus talks about this idea of if you implement all these teachings that are in the Sermon on the Mount into your own life, you'll be like a person who builds their house upon the rock instead of the sinking sand. And so I think for integrity's sake, you've got to have something that you believe in that centers you. And so for me, it's Christ. And so it's knowing him and being in a constant relationship with him. And when I abide in him, as it says in John chapter 15, 1 through 11, it talks all about how we should abide in him. From my life, I find that I'm more grounded and I'm different from everybody else. And then I love Proverbs chapter 10, verses 9, where it says, those who walk in integrity walk securely, but the crooked man will be found out.
Yeah.
And that one's a stinger for me, because I've seen that in my own life where, man, the Lord has a way of bringing up, truth, whether it be a business that's bad or a church that's bad or something else. Like, he always brings the truth out to life. And so I've tried to make it a practice of, man, just who I am needs to be consistent. And, like we started with my daughter, seeing me and being with me right now in her senior year. And why I, took a break from my doctorate for a bit. It's like, well, she only gets one dad. And, I work in the busy Bay Area, where people are working, all the time. Like, it's different than anything I've ever seen. Like, guys will work 48 hours straight. Just for their Silicon Valley job. And what goes by the wayside? A family, a marriage, and so much more. And so I would much rather, me even as a pastor, be that guy who sets that example of integrity. And so it's pursuing time with my family, spending time alone with the Lord, reading God's word, applying it to my life, not letting it go in one ear and out the other, but really allowing it to change who I am, and all those things have helped for my own integrity.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's so good. And so nothing in the dark ever stays in the dark. Eventually it comes to light. And just kind of what you're talking about as well. That as I was thinking about, so Luke 12 verses 2 and 3, whatever you have said in the dark will be heard in the light, and whatever you have whispered behind closed doors will be shouted from the housetops for all to hear.
Isn't that scary, Shane? Like, I mean,
it is.
That's sobering.
It's exactly. It is that side of going, man, like that. There are so many times in leadership where we're like, oh, you know what? No one will find out. But man, it always comes to light, and it is so much worse. It reminds me of lying. You start with that small lie, and it just keeps on building and building and building, and eventually everything comes down, and now you've lost that trust. And it's hard to rebound from that. If you haven't been honest with people.
Yeah. And I would also caution in this, like there's a lot of times young leaders will walk into an environment and they'll see their core leader make a mistake, or they'll be like, I mean, I'm in the ministry environment. So, they'll see us on stage and we'll be gregarious, and then we'll come into work on Monday and we'll be really, really grumpy. you know? And so there's some people with this like integrity filter that's like, oh, this guy, look at him. He's not a real Christian,
Sure.
you know? And so I think it's important that we say, okay, look, character is not the short game, but it's the long game. So judging a person's character based upon one interaction is a danger. And young leaders do this. They'll go, oh man, I know the real Andrew Poe, or I know Josh, and I talked with him on Thursday, and he was, you know, and really we can't do that. You know, we have to give people grace, and character is really looking at the bigger picture, and a more mature, a more wise person can see the whole picture instead of just one like little point that can just drive them crazy, and they'll be like, look, I know the real Andrew Poe. Oh man,
Yeah.
I talked to him last week, and he's
And making assumptions on
correct. Where you got to look at the full grand scope of things when it comes to leadership and integrity.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
And I believe part of that too is leadership transparency. So if I'm not transparent about who I am, and if I'm not the same person I am at work as I am at home, then there's going to be some gaps in just who I say I am and who they think I am. I think that's why it's important to be transparent, but it's also important to live your life the same, whether you're at work or whether you're at home. So absolutely. And I got to say, Andrew, I've never seen you grumpy. We worked with this man for quite a few years, and the smile that he has right now is the smile that he came in with on Monday morning. So.
Well, you should see me when I'm building a parking lot. I am not a happy guy. So
that can make you grumpy. I understand that. That leads into the second part of our question here. So, Andrew, what are some practical things that you can tell our listeners? What things can they put in place to live out an integrity-based life, or to be integrity-based leaders in their homes or at work or wherever they're at?
Oh man, I would say first, this is a long game. It's not a short game. You know, like integrity is not something that I can pop into the microwave and I can grow in 30 seconds. It is a lifetime of choices that you make. On the opposite end, like when you don't have integrity, it can all come crashing down in like 30 seconds like a microwave. But I would say true character and true integrity is a long obedience, as Eugene Peterson says, in the right direction. And it really is learning and growing. I also love C.S. Lewis is one of my favorites as well. And in Mere Christianity, he talks about this idea of, not being a person, who lives differently in your own private life, but allowing who you are to be, exactly the same, which you brought up, Josh. And I think that's critical. I think, though, it is a lifetime pursuit of really working on your beliefs, really working on what you value, and then allowing that to flow out into your character. If you don't get your beliefs and values right, that sub-base, as we talked about before, is always going to be bad. And it's always going to have to be replaced. It's always going to have to be fixed. But when you go down deep and you dig down, then you're going to find that, man, it's solid. And then everything else it's built upon is more maintenance, but I don't have to do the hard work of going deep down again. And so I think some other daily practice is just realizing I can't do any of this on my own. And so recognizing my own fallenness and how I need God in everything. And so daily being in God's word and, not just as a checklist thing, but to really be transformed, that helps. I think surrounding yourself by good friends who will tell you the truth. And I think that that's a good part of having a team that will be honest and open with you, even if they think it might hurt your feelings. Like that is super important as well, both organizationally and then in your own personal relationships, having an honest relationship that way, like that helps as well. And I have a great team around here. It's super relational, and it's different than a lot of the other contexts that I've worked in. And being able to do life together with your friends and ministry together with your friends and having honest, open conversations always helps ground both an organization, and it's also you that gets grounded in the process.
Absolutely. It's interesting. So, we see different leadership trends, things like that. But one of the things that we're seeing more as kind of the leadership style that's emerging, what used to be a little more of command and control is what's really considered authentic leadership. And so, which is very much in line with the servant leadership side, but just what both of you gentlemen are talking about is that authenticity of being who you are, not just at home, but at work, but as well as being authentic enough to say, hey, this is an area where I need to get better, where I'm struggling, and then leaning on people that can do that. We read in Ecclesiastes, for two are better than one, for if one falls down, the other person can pick them back up. And then it goes on to say that a triple braided cord is not easily broken. It's so interesting to see those dynamics as well. The more people you surround yourself who want what's best for you and that are committed to improving one another, as iron sharpens iron, a brother sharpens a brother, that we consistently see that authenticity continue to grow, but as well as the integrity-based leadership continue to expand into, no, I'm holding you accountable, you're holding me accountable to being authentic and to being someone of high integrity.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Andrew, there's one more very, very difficult question. Complex, it's a thinker. In the off season here, the football off season, what do you think about Clemson?
Oh man, what do I think about Clemson? Jesse would tell you one thing, but oh man, I love Clemson football. I love Dabu Sweeney. Dabu is he's great and he's excellent. I don't know about Clemson anymore, dude. Like they hate the transfer portal, so they won't go into it.
That's right.
NIL has killed college football altogether. I'm going to say it. I'll say it. It's a bold proclamation, but I think it's honestly killed it because the heart's not there like it used to be. You got the free agents who just kind of move around everywhere. You've got schools like Alabama. I hate Alabama, but that have so much money that they can buy in the best team, and so now it's almost modified professional football at this point.
It really is. It really is. Now, listen, you're always welcome to become a Notre Dame fan if you'd like.
Josh, I was rooting for you. I love to see Ohio lose. I love to see Ohio lose. So
same here. Well, Andrew, I want to thank you for your time. It has been an incredible conversation. We hope to hear from you more in the future. We'd love to have you back on if you're interested in the future to talk about more topics. I think, what you've brought today is extremely insightful, things that, I could take some things away and Shane, I can't speak for him, but I'm sure that he can as well.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to thank you for that, Andrew.
If nothing else, just how to build road.
I am your asphalt guy. I'll tell you how to pave all day long now. So I live in that world.
All right.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, again, Andrew.
No problem. Good to see you guys again. Praying for you guys as you launch this show, because I think that you're onto something where if people don't have that firm foundation, whether it be in leadership, whether it be in life, whether it be in just every day, their life can become shambles really quickly. And so understanding the importance that this is both a realistic mission for life, but this is a biblical mission as well, I think is critical.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks again, Andrew. Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Stick around. Shane and I are going to kick off one more thing, or one more shot, actually, as we call it. So thanks again, Andrew.
No problem. Good to see you guys.
Hey, welcome back. This is One More Shot with Shane and Josh. We're going to wrap it up. So this segment, we'll talk a little bit about our favorite quotes from our guest, or some of our favorite analogies that they used, and we'll go from there. Shane, go ahead.
Absolutely, yeah. So, there's so much great content in what Andrew was talking about. One of the things I loved is just his use of redoing the parking lot and just kind of talking about the different layers as well. It is so crucial as well. And as he was talking through that idea of, if you're not getting down to the deeper level, you're going to have to just keep kind of plastering the top. And man, that is so true in our day-to-day lives. If we're not reaching in and getting a little bit more of the roots, getting a little bit more of the deeper foundation, man, we are just going to struggle in our leadership. And then he talked about Patrick Lencioni and his book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. Man, I love that book. And one of the things he talks about is that first level of the pyramid is trust. And so trust and integrity, they play so much into one another. So as you continue to build on that trust, you're going to see a little bit more integrity be able to be built into the team, but as well as the team is going to challenge you when you're doing things that are not demonstrating that integrity that you strive to do. So I think those were just some key takeaways that I just thought were so important and so great to remember. Because if we don't do those things, if we don't have a strong foundation, a firm foundation, as we would say, you're going to struggle in your leadership, in your life, and you're going to struggle to maintain that integrity-based leadership or lifestyle.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed the talk on authenticity and transparency as well, because it is hard sometimes for leaders to be authentic and transparent, especially in a non-secular environment. So in a church, right? You see sometimes there's leaders that don't want to be themselves inside and outside of the church, or they're two different people inside and outside of the church, and that shocks and surprises some of the staff or the congregation. So I think it's important for us to, number one, be transparent about who we are, and to a degree about our flaws as well, but also live authentically, right? So I think that's important in establishing any relationship, establishing trust and credibility. So absolutely, it was a great discussion today. I really loved it. So Shane, tell us what's coming up next.
Absolutely. So our next discussion we're going to be having on is empowering the next generation of church leaders. I've got a great friend, Adam, who's going to be joining us and just talking a little bit about how we can empower this next generation of leaders, especially those who are wanting to get more involved in ministry as well. I think we're just continuing to see more of a trend of the generations are getting older and older as we look at the top tier of leadership. And if we don't do our best to start empowering and leading through this next generation, we are going to see such a decline, I believe. And so we're bringing him in. He actually is a great leader who has led youth and all kinds of young adult ministry. And so, man, I am just excited to hear what he has to say and some practical steps of how we can do our best to really be able to pour into this next generation of leaders who will then be able to pour into our kids and the future generations after that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing I love about that too, and that conversation that's coming up, is it's not just for church leaders. You can apply this in the business world as well. And I think it's very important in the business world, because as you, not in the church and in the secular environment, it's important to develop people to take your position, right? So that's your ultimate goal, is to have some sort of succession plan. I'm developing future leaders, no matter whether I'm in the church or outside of the church. So what a great discussion. I am really excited to bring
and I just want to say that there was a recent study that was done, and I just thought it was so insightful. It said that this younger generation, two things that they're looking for more than anything in a job, in workplace, is they want to feel valued and they want to feel that they're growing as a leader. And man, if we can do those two things, I think the sky's the limit.
You are 100% there. If I could put up the 100 logo or the 100 emoji thing, that would be great. I'd pop it up there. So round of applause for that one, Shane. Awesome. Well, we hope you all enjoyed the show today. If you did, please subscribe on YouTube, like us on Spotify or Substack. We've got our podcast is on all three of those media outlets. So we're really looking forward to you sticking with us and hearing just all the insightful wisdom that the guests have that we're going to bring in. So thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next time.
Absolutely. Well, maintain your life on a firm foundation.